I started the Stars Explode, I think back in 2007, 2008, sort of as almost like a vanity project. I had been in bands all through my life, really, from the time I was a 13-year-old kid. I was in this little mod pop band called The Scene growing up in Pennsylvania. We put out a record years ago when I was a teenager. And then, post-college, I was in a band called Glad Hands in the mid to late 90s. And we had a fair amount of critical success, not a lot of commercial success, and building on that, I just found my way into one band after another. And, as I started to recover from the breakup of Glad Hands in the late 90s, I just took some time off and then sort of thought about what I wanted to do. And I was always a drummer in past bands, but I always was a songwriter as well. So I thought, well, it's time for me to sort of step up front, stand or fall on my own merits as the front man and guitar player, rhythm guitar player at least. And so the Stars Explode's first record was basically just me. But when I was finished with it, I put together a band and we started playing in the area. And then I've gone through, I feel like Spinal Tap. I've gone through about 5 drummers, I think. And the last drummer we had before Jackson knew Jackson from the Cleveland scene and put us in touch. And it was like immediate simpatico from the time I met him. We just had a lot in common musically and just in terms of our interests and where we were in our lives. And so it's been great working together. And then we've got, a fantastic lead guitar player, Dewey McCafferty. And then our bass player, Lance Westerland, is just super talented, very dynamic performer, super low key off stage and super high energy on stage. And so yeah, that's sort of been the history of the band. And we've been, the 4 of us have been playing together now, I'd say for about 3-4 years as this ensemble. And yeah, this is the first record that all 4 of us have appeared on, if I'm not mistaken.
I would say the kind of vibe that we try to create is that of a hard rock and pop band. So the songs are very hooky and catchy and commercial.
But not wimpy.
And with a harder edge to it. And I think that, over the last couple of years, we've kind of hardened that edge a bit. I'm kind of always pushing to drive things to a little bit harder edge. And I think it's working great with this band. I mean, we've got, Dewey is an amazing lead guitar player. Like Doug said, Lance is super high energy, amazing bass player. Doug's vocals and guitars and just, pounding drums. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Were we really in a dire mood when we cut the record? And the honest truth is no. Some of these songs date back a few years before the current political climate happened, but we just felt it was sort of a timely title for the record. And the opening track, Apocalypse Blues, even though it has some lines that would make you think it was political, is more of a love song in a way. It's like the world is falling apart, but if nothing else, maybe we can save each other. So that was sort of the theme and the thought behind the album title and the opening cut.
Yeah, when we set out to record this record, we were not, trying to win the loudness war, right? We really had conceptually wanted it to sound warm with a wide dynamic range, more of a 70s type of sounding record that would be coming out on vinyl. And it was really, we simplified everything. So, the arrangements of the songs are very simple. It was basically recorded live. Very few overdubs, a few guitar tracks, some keyboards, percussion, obviously overdub the vocals, but, very gentle compression, not much treatment on the vocals. So we wanted it to really be as live as possible and kind of, down and dirty. These are real pop songs that rock, and that's what we were looking for.
Yeah, and we had done the last record in a major recording studio, Mitch Easter's Fidelatorium, which was a great experience. But this time around, with all of Jackson's background as an engineer and producer, we wanted to do a more do-it-yourself approach, and we recorded it as you mentioned, sort of live as an ensemble, most of the basic tracks. And when you're working in your own studio or in a domestic setup, in a way, it's a lot less stressful because you're not on the clock. You can take your time and be a little bit more loose. And I think that really added to the vibe of the record, the fact that it was recorded at home, but as a group, not one person at a time. And you could never tell quality wise. At the end of the day, we were thrilled with the outcome. But completely different experience than the last one, but a good one. We've all got other obligations to some degree, and sometimes it's hard to find the time to put it all together, really. We've had some of these songs for a few years, but others were really new, and we wanted to work up the tunes in a live setting before we cut the record. I think it was important to sort of test the songs out in front of audiences before we started work on the album. So it was just a matter of finding a collection of tunes that we thought fit well together as well. That's another thing. And it seemed like we had reached a critical mass, back in the summer of 2016, and that's when we commenced work on the album.
I think that there are a couple of tracks in particular that really come together on it. One is Some Girls Part 2, which just really has a great feel. Rainy Days, again, has a great groove and a great feel. And seemingly the crowd favorite is Untitled Number 1, which is it's kind of a silly song. I mean, it rocks. I mean, it really started as a joke.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, why you gotta do it? Why you gotta do it? Do 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 do. It's really fun to play, but people seem to love it. It's just kind of a all out to the wall kind of rocker. So that was a lot of fun.
I remember when we did the basic tracks, Untitled has always been a fun song to play live, and we've had it in our repertoire for a couple of years now. And even though I wasn't singing a final vocal track when we cut the basics, you could tell it just had a good vibe. And but a standout moment for me would definitely be my son cut a trumpet part on Rainy Days, which has kind of a again, sort of a 70s AM radio vibe going on. And, I brought my son over to the studio, and he had never actually been in a recording studio in that setting. And, Jackson was getting everything set up, and he was sounding a little rusty as he was warming up in the control room. And then we went in the next room for him to cut the part. And, Jackson said, "All right, rolling." And he just nailed it in one take. And we all sort of had goosebumps after that. And that was one of the last songs that I wrote for the record. It's a newer cut, and I was excited about how it was coming together, but when the trumpet part got played, it was just like the magic came through.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, we made a conscious decision in this go round not to release it on CD. We decided to do vinyl with a download card, and of course it's out there on all the streaming platforms. It's available via Spotify and iTunes and Tidal. You can get it through our Bandcamp page. But as far as the physical product, we just thought, we're all vinyl heads. We've all, grown up listening to vinyl and loving vinyl. And there's something about holding a record in your hand, opening up the gatefold cover, looking at the lyrics. It's just a whole different tactile experience. And it's a participatory thing for me. I mean, when I, for years, was just buying CDs, I still loved the music, but you'd pop it in and sort of walk away, and it wasn't the same type of listening experience. And you can't play it in your car, and you can't play it on your mobile device necessarily, but taking out that record and putting it on the turntable for me has always been the most enriching experience in listening to music. And it's just been cool to watch vinyl come back over the last few years, and to see it in Barnes & Noble and Urban Outfitters and all these other locations. And we thought, let's put out a beautiful looking and a beautiful sounding record, and just allow people to get it, as a download as well. But we just thought, we don't need CDs this time.
We chose this song to shoot for video was really based on our video production crew, Skelly Films. We kind of gave them all the tracks to listen to, and it was the one that popped out for them. And again, it seems to be a song that everybody focuses in on, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to shoot. It's going to be real simple. It's going to be loud and raucous.
Yeah, everybody latches onto that song the first time they've heard the advanced release of the record, whether it was friends or strangers. People seem to latch onto that tune. It's a fun song. It's straight ahead, and it makes for a good sort of live performance video too. So I think it should be a blast. After we get through the holidays, we plan on doing some touring in 2018. This group hasn't gotten out as much beyond our home base of North Carolina as I would like, and we've got some ambitious plans to try to get out and play some major markets up and down the East Coast, maybe Chicago and the Midwest, and if all goes as planned, we'd like to make a run down the West Coast sometime later in the spring, maybe summertime. Over the years, we've all got connections from all over with bands we've played with over the years and different places we've lived. So hopefully we can stitch it all together.
Number one tour stop, Cleveland, Ohio.
See you soon, Cleveland. So the new album by The Stars Explode is Too Late to Save the World. It is available on deluxe 180 gram vinyl, the beautiful gatefold cover. And you can also get it in all the usual streaming formats, Spotify and Tidal and iTunes and all that good stuff. But should be available at all cool record stores nationwide.